Hey everybody, today we're going to finish out the week with some polling in 3 states in the Northeast. We've got New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont. We're going to do President, Senate, Governor, as well as the U.S. House. And this poll is from the University of New Hampshire. And the sample size for New Hampshire used over 2,000 likely voters. For Maine and Vermont, it was a little bit less, but it was still over 900. So let's get into this poll, and we'll start here in New Hampshire. And the top line number here is Harris has a 7-point lead, 50-43 for Trump. Kennedy is polling in 4. And that's similar to the margin a month ago where Harris had a 6-point lead. Above, it says Harris garners slightly higher support among self-described progressives at 97% and socialists 91% than Biden did in May. Only 32% of moderates support Trump, but nearly all conservatives at 95% and a majority of libertarians at 59% support him. Harris leads with women 57-39 and those with college degrees 63-31, while Trump holds smaller leads among men 48-45 and those without a college degree 51-42. So that looks like a convincing shift and advantage for Harris. Will that continue for the next 9 or 10 weeks? We'll have to find out. Next, it says when asked who is most likely to win the presidential election, back in July, Trump had a big advantage, 57 to Biden's 26. Now with Harris, it's flipped to 46-42. Then they polled the confidence of the peaceful transfer of power after the next election. Then we've got some favorability ratings, and Harris is at 45 unfavorable, 49 favorable. Trump is even more underwater, 39 favorable, 55 unfavorable. And then we've got candidate attributes. Most of these Harris is looking pretty good on. Trump does appear to be struggling, but again, is this just a honeymoon period or is this going to be lasting? Next, we've got the running mates, and I'm pretty sure this is a mistake. This says feelings on Wall's selection as Trump's running mate among Harris supporters. 69% are enthusiastic, 26% satisfied. That typo should say as Harris's running mate. So kind of a big deal, but everybody's going to make a mistake once in a while. Overall, Tim Wall's favorability is +4, 44-40. Then we've got feelings on J.D. Vance as Trump's running mate. Among Trump supporters, 44 are enthusiastic, 42 are satisfied. And then Vance's favorables here are at 34 favorable, 53 unfavorable. So Vance not looking so hot. And then down below that, we've got approval ratings for Biden. Now that he's out of the race, I'm going to kind of skip over that, but you can take a look at it if you'd like. As always, all the links will be down below in the description. Now, one thing I'll point out about this UNH poll is back in 2020, their final poll was actually close to accurate. Some of the polls further back turned out to be less accurate, but the reputation of this pollster in the last election is actually great. It doesn't mean it's going to happen again, but it is worth taking note of. Now let's move on to the governor's election in this state. It's an open seat, and that primary is coming up on September 10th. On the GOP side, former U.S. Senator Kelly Ayotte has a commanding lead with 65%. Chuck Morse is at 21. So it looks very likely that Ayotte is going to be the nominee. Chuck Morse is trying to label Ayotte as a rhino. It looks like that's not going to be enough. We've got favorability ratings here. With likely Republican voters, she's at a 62% favorable, only 14% unfavorable. Chuck Morse, meanwhile, is at 31 favorable, 17 unfavorable. A big chunk really don't have much of an opinion of Morse. All the other candidates are way down from there. Now, on the other side, with the Democrats, looks like they're going to have a little bit more of a competitive primary. The more establishment candidate, Joyce Craig, has a 9-point lead, 39 to City Warmington's 30. That's been pretty consistent on the few polls we've seen earlier in the year. Then down here, we've got favorables for these candidates. Joyce Craig, 55 favorable, 9 unfavorable. Cindy Warmington, 43 favorable, 9 unfavorable. Next, let's go down to the U.S. House. In the 2nd Congressional District, that's going to be an open seat. It's bluer than the 1st District. Democrats have a competitive primary. Maggie Goodlander has a 6-point lead, 34 to Colin Van Osten's 28. A big chunk, though, 38% are undecided. So that could go either way, depending on which way the late breakers go. Then we've got favorables for Goodlander and Van Osten. They're comparable, but Goodlander has the slight edge, although there are more people that don't know who she is. On the Republican side, it also could be competitive. With 21% and the lead is Vikram Mancharamani. Right behind with 17 is Lily Tong Williams. Both of them have prior experience running for office. The big thing to take note of here is at the bottom. A massive 49% don't know or are undecided. So that nomination is certainly up for grabs. Then down here we've got favorability ratings. And easily over a majority don't know who they are. But in the general election, the Democrat there should easily be favored. Then in the 1st District, this has incumbent Democrat Chris Pappas. And the district is a little bit more competitive. So the Republicans are lining up to challenge Pappas. The front runner right now is Russell Prescott, but he only has 19%. Again at the bottom, a massive 60% don't know. So this is a late primary. It's on September 10th. Whoever wins these nominations is not going to have a ton of time to get their campaigns going. Let's move ahead to Maine. At the top of the ticket for president, at large, Harris has a massive lead, 55 to Trump's 38. If that panned out, that would be a significant improvement for Harris over 2020 for Biden. And this is a state you'd think independents or third-party candidates would do better. Well, you can see Kennedy tops out at only 2%. Now, if you break it down by congressional district, the first district is much, much bluer. Harris is at 62% there. Trump is at 33. The second district, Trump won that twice rather comfortably. But in this, Harris actually has the lead 49 to Trump's 44. Again, that would be a massive improvement for Harris if she were able to flip it to that extent. Now, I'm not going to go over everything, but they've got much of the same data as New Hampshire. And in 2020, Biden won the state at large by 9%. So I've always expected the state to go blue, even if it moves toward Trump. But you might remember earlier in the year, we covered some polling out of Maine that actually showed Trump in the lead at large. The percentages there were under 40%. And I always said I didn't really buy them. I thought many times those were just disaffected Biden voters that are not enthusiastic for him. Now I think most of those voters are going to come out for Harris. However, I would also not expect her to win the state by over 10 points and flip that second congressional district. Anything is possible, but there's a lot of time left, and that seems outside what I would consider reasonable. Now, also in Maine, there is no governor's election this year, but there are some congressional elections. It doesn't look like I could find the U.S. House data, but in the U.S. Senate, there's an election there with incumbent independent Angus King. He caucuses with the Democrats, and he does have a challenge from both a Democrat and a Republican. In this, King is up by 10, 43 to Republican challenger Demi Kazunis at 33. I would expect King to win by more than 10. You can see here King is getting 70% of Democrats, and 0% of them are going to the Republican. Independents are also heavily breaking for King, fellow independent. Only 12% are going to Kazunis. And with Republicans, 79% are going to Kazunis, while King is picking up 7%. Then down here we've got favorability ratings. King is at 45 favorable, 34 unfavorable. Then it's way down from there. Over 60% don't know enough about the remaining candidates. So technically Kazunis, the Republican, does have some room to expand. I don't think she's going to get it down to 10. King is just so well known. He used to be the governor. The independent label does have some appeal there, but we'll still have to see what happens. Then we've got some ballot propositions here for Maine, and these questions don't really gauge the support for these propositions. They just see how well they're understood by the voters. So I don't really think that's all that useful. And then we've got some more polling here about the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, and then under that they do show the level of support for splitting their congressional districts or having it winner take all. 48% say keep it at splitting the districts, 37% say winner take all. Then under that there's more approval ratings and some key issues. Finally, let's move on to Vermont. This is a very blue state, and at the top of the ticket for president, we've got Harris with 67% of the vote. Trump is at 27. That's not too far off from the actual margin back in 2020. Meanwhile, Kennedy pulls in only 3, 0% for Chase Oliver, 0% for Cornel West, only 1% for another candidate, and 1% don't know. Given the state is so progressive, I would expect Cornel West to get more than 0% in the state. Then we could scroll down a little bit more. They ask more again about who's likely to win and the peaceful transfer of power. Then they have the favorability ratings. Harris is at 63 favorable, 30 unfavorable. Trump is on the complete other end, 25 favorable, 72 unfavorable. And then they go more into the candidate attributes as well as the running mates. Again, feel free to pause it if you'd like. Finally, we're going to take a look at governor. Everybody's been waiting for this one. Phil Scott, how is he looking for the general election? Well, he has a massive lead of 56% to 28 for Esther Charleston. Even Democrats support Scott 44 to 41. Independents are going 69 for Scott. Republicans 78 for Scott. So it looks like Scott is well on his way to winning another landslide victory. Again, there's a lot more data down below with favorabilities. They also took a look at the U.S. House and that Senate race. Becca Balint and Bernie Sanders, the Democrats, both have massive leads. It's exactly what we would expect to see in this state. So the data is all here, and again, the links will be down below in the description. Also down below under all the data in these polls, they do have the crosstabs as well as the demographic sample sizes. So you can spend some time combing through some of that data. But that's where we're at on these 3 states in the Northeast. Some very positive numbers there for Kamala Harris. I don't know if it could really get much better than that. Is that going to hold? I tend to think not to that extent on most of these numbers, but you never know. Maybe she did go from very unpopular as vice president to super popular as the presidential nominee. Maybe Biden was that weak that anybody would look way better. And on the other side, Trump does have a ton of baggage. His support actually was a little bit lower than what I would expect, even though these are considered a little bit bluer states. I think there are more unknowns with Harris than with Trump. We're all pretty much just giving it our best guess. We've seen the data change a number of times. Be prepared for the possibility that it changes yet again, maybe even a couple of times. times. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about any of the polling in any of these states? Do you like this pollster? Do you not like them? Do you think Harris does have that much of a lead? Do you think they oversampled Democrats? Let me know what you think about any of it down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.